as Pastor Jeremiah Wright said, you can't just fucking kill teenagers, pregnant mothers, children, and non-military personnel, and then say, yes, we're free. No, that's not how it works. Here we are, number 18. Quick thing before I get started. I do live streams every now and again where I'll just like go on and I'll just talk about music, or I'll be working on some of my music. Already, a couple of you have been on my live stream. It's so much fun, so I really love live streaming, so I tend to do it as often as I can. If you don't know how to do live streams, now you do. So subscribe and click the wee bell icon to get notified whenever I'm live streaming. If you're free, then I would appreciate if you drop in and say hi. Right, on to the video. I'm going to be talking about Vinnie Paz again. Probably one of the strangest track names that I've seen. You Can't Be Neutral on a Moving Train. I've already done a video about one of Vinnie Paz's other tracks, End of Days. You can watch that here. Click it, it'll open up in a new window, and then you can watch it after this one. So this time, You Can't Be Neutral on a Moving Train. I'm fully expecting this to be full-on conspiracy theory shit, third eye shit, proper, in the natural Vinnie Paz style of, fuck the government and all that jazz, right? I consider myself to be a Vinnie Paz fan, but, well, I haven't heard this track before, so maybe that's a stretch. I already know Vinnie Paz's style, I already know his ability, I know his capability in terms of lyricism, I know what beats he tends to go for, which are the type of beats I generally like because they include a lot of samples. He loves sampling, which to me, I grew up on like old school underground hip hop, so sampling was a heavy part of that. So I naturally tend to like that because it reminds me of the good old days. Not going to talk too much about the intro because, as I said, I've already done a video about Vinnie Paz, so I already know who he is. You already know who he is. I know what he's capable of. You know what he's capable of. You've probably heard the track. I haven't, but here's my thoughts on Vinnie Paz. You cannot be neutral on a train which is moving. The first word. I knew this was going to be typical Vinnie Paz government stuff.
All the time. Well, not just the American government. It's just in the nature of governments. Well, they have to lie. And since they don't represent the people, and so since they act against the
also, another point that I was right about, sampling.
Interest of the people, the only way they can hold power is if they lie to the people.
You don't know what I know. You can't see the spreading stain of deception. I am cruel to myself. Things will never be the same.
If they told people the truth, they wouldn't last very long.
I will hold my silence like a weapon in my hand. If I used it, I would murder myself. You could never understand.
You're right, I don't understand. What the hell was this hook about? I'll probably play again. What?
Columbus came ashore, greeted with nothing but niceness. Sailing west in attempt to find golden spices. Dominated by the popes and frenzy for ISIS. The Catholic Church expelled Jews and claimed it was righteous. The first man to see land would get a reward and get a yearly pension for life, clearly from God. A young sailor saw land, said we isn't far. Columbus lied, said he saw it the evening before. They touched ground, they were greeted by the Arawak. Columbus had them locked up as prisoners in an hour flat. He wanted to find a source of gold, and that was that. And when they thought that wasn't fair, then he stabbed their back. When there was no more gold, he took slaves instead and left 250,000 Indians in Haiti dead. The men died in mines, the women died at work. The children died from lack of milk and they died in the dirt. They were just taking advantage of a passive people. They were just being the savages of massive evil. That's the church work, that's the path of massive ego. That's the blood of Abraham being stabbed by the steeple. At 16, 19, they were patiently waiting.
Holy shit, wasn't ready for that. That verse is fucking brilliant. And what made it even more brilliant is Vinnie Paz. It's going to be about real shit. It's not going to be about fucking bitches fucking... It's not going to include the Migos formula is what I'm saying. Fucking hell. And that beat change was something nice as well. It went from like a really sort of sampled underground hip hop beat to it just sort of went flat in terms of tone.
By the steeple, at 16, 19, they were patiently waiting for a ship to carry slaves that was changing the nation. The white man was a cannibal praying to Satan. Hatred, contempt, or pity, or patronization. That's the cornerstone, everything racism based in. The African had a more advanced civilization. Black was slave, master was white, rationalization. 50 million dead, that's Western civilization.
You know what, right? He's writing one thing. What I'm about to say is not going to be me hating on America or hating on Trump or hating on whatever. I'm just stating something, right? America are so proud of their, freedom, but the cornerstone of America isn't freedom. The cornerstone of America was built on terrorism. You can deny that all you like, right? You can continue to live in your bubble, right? That's fine. The fact of the matter is, America was born out of terrorism. And that first verse is tribute to that. America is a product of terrorism. A, they got their country by terrorism. And B, then they go try and enforce their, quote-unquote democracy, right, to other countries. They probably do have a shit way of life compared to us Westerners, right? That's not denying that. It's probably true, right? But that doesn't give you the right to go and terrorize them into swallowing your bullshit. Fuck me, man.
At first they appeared in the north, and they were helpless in the face of superior force. And all of them were chained together, they really was lost. Racism isn't natural, it's merely divorce. Before the slave trade, black was considered distasteful. By the Oxford Dictionary, I found it disgraceful. It's not a natural tendency to be bitter and hateful. It's a natural enemy of the critical staple. Slavery grew as the plantation system grew. The reason for that's kinda easily traceable. Society of helpless dependence was capable of saying fuck a slave master, you in slavery too. 7 slaves were put to death for murdering master.
Beat change again.
Fear of slave revolt had them developing faster. You a Catalan killer, an elegant bastard. I would burn the white man while smelling the ashes. From time to time, white man was part of the resistance. White indentured servants wanted no part of the system. King Philip's war showed that if people would listen, that they could maybe break the complex chain of oppression. Tyranny is tyranny, but that's a concession. But the women, they was treated like that of possessions. Black women had it work cause they was abused. That's the white justification of Aryan blues. The next move was to dominate the Mexicans. James Polk dominated them like they was next to kin. He sent Colonel Cross a lot of them and let them in. 11 days later his skull was crushed, so message sent. We take nothing by conquest, that was the mantra. The military wasn't human, they were just monsters. Henry David Thoreau refused to pay his taxes. Denounced the Mexican War and got locked in shackles. The 20th century opened, anger re-emerged. Reality of ordinary life was being heard. Anarchists and feminists came from factory work. Communism, socialism seemed to be rebirth. War is the health of the state is what Bourne said. And if you was born around that time, you was born dead. The Espionage Act had people confused, cause it was double talking, they didn't know how it be used. Supposedly it was an act against spying. Du Bois noted that was bullshit and they was lying. Charles Schenck was arrested in Philadelphia for printing and distributing leaflets cause they was helping you. He was indicted, tried and then found guilty, and spent 6 months in jail. Don't that sound silly? Had his freedom taken away by his own nation. But there's a lesson, do not submit to intimidation. The act still exists today and the shit is real. Supposedly Kennedy tried to have that shit appealed. Eugene Debs did 10 years for no purpose. He obstructed the recruiting and enlistment service. The post office started taking mail privileges of magazines who printed anti-war sentiments. A socialist named Fairchild had it right. He said that they can shoot me but they can't make me fight. They sentenced him to a year in jail and that was reckless. 65,000 men, conscientious objectors. They were sent to army bases to work there. They were treated sadistically and were hurt there. They were strangled with a hemp rope till they collapsed. And officers punched their stomach and their lower back. A garden hose was placed on their face with a nozzle about 6 inches from them so they couldn't swallow. The war ended in 1918. The government was just trying to wipe the slate clean. Hemingway wrote Farewell to Arms. Dalton Trumbo wrote Johnny Got His Gun. The war was over but they didn't learn their lesson. Twin tactics of control, reform and repression. The patriotic fervor of war had been invoked. That's why the country that you live in is a fucking joke. You
So fucking true.
This is a story about the lies that your teacher told you. This is real, actual, factual. No lies in the whole record. If you don't believe me, look it up.
I was just gonna say, like, well, they can't take your word for it. But alright, okay.
I'm trying to share the shit that I learned with y'all. Due to knowledge. Your government does not care about you.
True.
The people in power do not care about you. Understand that. Power to the people.
War is like a fix. You know, you get high on war. We won. And then you're down on the ground again. And you need another fix. You need another war. Why do you think we've had war after war after war after war? Every war they say this is the end. This is the last war.
Akala said that as well.
They said this is a war to end all wars.
Akala did a couple lines on that in his, what's it called? Pieces on the Way. Actually, I think it's just called Peace. Just one more war. That was it. Just one more war. And then we can have peace. It's a lie, is what it is.
And then, not long after that was World War II. And then soon, the United States was waging war in Korea and then in Vietnam. If you study history, what you learn is that wars are always accompanied by lies. Wars are always accompanied by deception.
Wow, really enjoyed that. That was knowledge. Felt like I learned stuff. Obviously, I will go and look it all up after, like you said. You know, even though I'm a fan of Vinnie Paz, I'm not just going to blindly take his word for it just because he says something. You know, get the lyrics up and look up the stuff that I found interesting and find out if it's actually true or not. I'm not doubting that it is. No reason to lie. It's always better to look stuff up yourself. You know what that reminded me of? That reminded me of in one of Loki's albums, there was a priest. Actually, I think it was a priest, or was it a pastor or a priest? Saying, actually, hold on, I'll find it, right?
That what Malcolm X said when he got silenced by Elijah Muhammad was in fact true. America's chickens
It's a really old clip, so sorry for the, potato quality.
are coming home to roost. We took this country by terror away from the Sioux, the Apache, the Arawak, the Comanche, the Arapaho, the Navajo.
Exactly what Vinnie Paz was talking about.
Took Africans from their country to build our way of ease and kept them enslaved and living in fear. Terrorism. We bombed Grenada and killed innocent civilians, babies, non-military personnel. We bombed the black civilian community of Panama with stealth bombers and killed unarmed teenagers and toddlers, pregnant mothers and hard-working fathers. We bombed Gaddafi's home and killed his child. Blessed are they who bash your children's head against a rock. We bombed Iraq. We killed unarmed civilians trying to make a living. We bombed a plant in Sudan to pay back for the attack on our embassy. Killed hundreds of hard-working people, mothers and fathers who left home to go that day not knowing that they never get back home. We bombed Hiroshima. We bombed Nagasaki. And we nuked far more than the thousands in New York and the Pentagon. And we never batted an eye. Kids playing in the playground, mothers picking up children after school, civilians, not soldiers, people just trying to make it day by day. We have supported state terrorism against the Palestinians and black South Africans, and now we are indignant because the stuff we have done overseas is now brought right back into our own front yards. America's chickens are coming home to roost. Violence begets violence. Hatred begets hatred. And terrorism begets terrorism.
That's what reminds me of the first verse. Again, that's what I was touching upon, where America is not, its history is not freedom. Its cornerstone is not freedom. As Pastor Jeremiah Wright said, you can't just fucking kill teenagers, pregnant mothers, children, and non-military personnel and then say, yes, we're free. No, that's not how it works. You know what, right? Instead of me breaking down all of these lyrics, it's just reading up on some of them and the sort of history behind the lyric. I can't summarize it in such a short video. And by short, I mean, it's already going to be like 15, 16 minutes or whatever, right? But I can't break these lyrics down to a level that would do them justice and would do the history justice. What I encourage you to do, read up on them yourself and come back and drop a comment if you want, or tweet me if you want, and let me know what your thoughts are. Some of these are crazy. Like, let's talk about the production, let's talk about the beats. 5 beats in one track. I've never seen that done before. I'll be honest, I didn't like the segue between the beats because there was no sort of transition from one beat to another. Now, I mean, Drake does that sometimes, where he'll have like 2 beats on one track. Like, he did that on Summer 16, 2 beats, one track. But the segue was so much cleaner and it was so much more polished, is probably the wrong word to use, but whatever. Maybe because there was like such a short track, you couldn't really segue 5 beats into one. But yeah, that's what I felt, that the segue between the beats was abrupt. Maybe because the 5 beats weren't all in the same key and that's why it sounded abrupt. But all 5 beats were classic Vinnie Paz, old school underground hip hop beats, so I love that. At the core of it, I love this track because it's real. It's real history, it's real fact, and it's real hip hop. That's why I love Vinnie Paz, and that's why I love this track. That's why I love this whole album, actually. But yeah, it was produced by JBL the Titan, C. Lance. I've not heard any of their stuff that I can recall. One last line that I want to talk about real quick. He says, the war was over, but they didn't learn their lesson. Twin taxes for control, reform and repression. The patriotic forever war has been invoked. That's why the country that you live in is a fucking joke. The whole point behind that, I think, is that when the population who don't know any better and blindly trust whatever their government tell them, right? Blindly trust the TV and whatever it says and all that, right? Whenever they're subjected to this, you know, pro-war, well, pro-terrorism agenda, naturally they're going to think patriotism is leaning towards that, right? Patriotism is doing whatever your government tells you should be supporting, and in this case it just happens to be war, and that's why the country that you live in is a joke. So that was a very serious track, very serious points on my part as well. I'll end it on this note. I mean, no disrespect to anybody. I bear nobody any ill will at all. And I don't plan on sitting here beating the drum about, you know, America's history and all that, right? Because it can't be changed. It's written. The ink is dry, to quote the three-eyed raven from Game of Thrones, right? I really enjoyed that track. So, to end, 3 things you can do for me, and I actually do have 3 this time. You can follow me on Twitter, you can follow me on Snapchat, and you can subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you get notified, A, when I put a new video, and B, you get notified when I do a live stream, because I enjoy live streaming and I tend to live stream quite often. Thank you very much for watching the video. Thank you very much for subscribing. Have a nice day. One of Vinnie